so much, guys. Good evening, and I'm super excited to welcome you all for the very first Ask Me Anything session, the AMA session with LVInsights. Before moving on, I would again request all of you to please switch on your camera if possible. It would really help our speakers Samir and Arvind to know all of you much better and help you in that manner. Right. So, as I was speaking, we are super excited to have you all here with LVInsights. Basically, why am I saving LVInsights? With LVInsights, what are we trying to do is we are trying to bring a series of such kind of interactive AMA sessions for the investors, and we are trying to delve into the next big trends that are happening in the startup ecosystem. Right. So, for the very first AMA session that we have today, where we are going to talk a lot about state of gaming in Metaverse, we have two of the most talented guests with us, Samir Pitalwalla and Arvind Neelakantan. Right. So I won't take much of your time. Just let me quickly introduce all of you to Samir and Arvind here. So Samir Pitalwalla is the digital media and technology executive. He currently serves as the head of gaming APAC for Google Cloud and was previously the business director for APAC Games for Asian and South Asia countries. Prior to Epic, he was the co-founder and CEO of Culture Machine, one of India's largest digital media firms. He is a national award-winning film producer, Forbes 30 under 30 in 2017, and holds 3 US patents, technology patents to his name. Right. Samir also runs Visceral Syndicate on Let's Ventures platform, where he tries to back the entrepreneurs who are looking out to build interactive and immersive applications, including but not only related or limited to gaming. So, welcome, Samir. We are super excited to have you for the session. Awesome.
Thanks. Thanks, Anshul.
Talking about Arvind a little bit, Arvind Neelakantan heads technology for APAC Games, again, India and Asian countries. He specializes in games and in empowering film and animation studios. Prior to Epic, he was the head of technology for Unit Technologies. He was Disney India's lead software architect, responsible for driving innovation and content development. Before Disney, he was a full stack game engineer at Nickelodeon in Los Angeles, where he developed the MMORPGs games and played a key role in the company's technology business. So, Arvind, welcome. We are looking forward to learning a lot from you.
Thank you so much, Anshul. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, just to let you know, the coming 60 minutes, how are they going to look like? We have a super short presentation, very interactive presentation for all of you, where we have case studies and a lot of things so that you understand gaming in Metaverse a lot better. Which will be there on we have an audience Q&A session as well. So during the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them up in the chat box. I'll pick them up, or you can just ask those questions as well. So yes, I would really like to just welcome Samir and Arvind to take the stage and carry this forward.
Thank you, Anshul, and great being here. Thank you, everyone, for taking out your precious time and listening to us. We hope we learn from you, and looking forward to a really nice interactive session. This is a new world, and none of us claim to know anything more beyond what is already out there. But thankfully, I think because of the fact that both Arvind and I have been looking at this space for close to half a decade now, we began interacting during the time when he was at Unity and I was at Culture Machine, and we began working closely together and looking at stuff what Unity was doing, and then worked very closely together when we both were at Epic Games, and continue to be in touch. So we're quite excited to talk about this, but more importantly, also see different perspectives. So without further ado, if Anshul, you could share the presentation, that would be great. That's Arvind and me looking good and much thinner than we actually are in reality. Right. So let's get into the overall total addressable market. Games in general, if you do a takeaway, it's about 6.5 to 7% of total entertainment spending currently in India. And while this is growing at 40% CAGR, the fact of the matter is that it is heavily under-indexed when it comes to total entertainment spending. Globally, it's about 50% is what's of total entertainment spends go towards games. In India, is just as I already mentioned, 7%. And while the numbers are looking nice and big in terms of it being a $7 billion industry, this is taking into account the current growth rate, but it doesn't take into account systemic changes which are happening to the industry, especially with the whole metaverse buzz cycle which is happening. So you're beginning to see, while gaming itself continues to be a very core important part of how people understand the world of 3D. The tools themselves are being used in a variety of other industries, and the top 5 industries which are seeing a significant amount of this change devised by these tools range from automotive to architecture to digital twins, and also media and entertainment, which itself is converging heavily with what gaming was doing, because the same tools which were being used in gaming are also being used to produce some of the top TV shows that you currently enjoy on Netflix and Amazon Prime. So India, obviously, the macro perspective is that mobile-led market. Mobile is close to about 75 to 80% of the total spends in terms of gaming currently. So it is the device. But if you look at monetization globally, PC and console currently rule the roost, and within mobile, obviously, as everybody would expect, iOS is currently far ahead than what Android is. But the fact is that in this market, most people didn't have computing devices to play games until about a decade ago. The proliferation began, and now there's no looking back. Pretty much, most studies also estimate that, like the last 2 decades was the decades of video, where it went from 3 out of 10 internet users used to watch video to pretty much all 10 out of 10 internet users will watch video in terms of a total active internet base compared to the total active video viewers. Similarly, gaming is on a similar trajectory where pretty much every user of the internet would be playing some form of 3D entertainment, which most likely will be a game. But as we'll discuss going further, the definition of what is a game is expanding as the internet itself is moving to 3D. And India being a predominantly mobile market, no difference over there, as we are seeing Gen Z and millennials spending hours in terms of sessions, which are 2 to 3 times of what they would spend watching video. On this slide, I think, Arvind, it would be great if you come in and kind of talk about maybe a bit about what differentiates a game from a metaverse, and before we dive in deeper about what the various stacks and the metaverse sandwich looks like.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Samir. Once again, I'm very happy to be part of this AMA. And this is a question I'm often asked, which is, what is really the metaverse? After reading a lot, after giving it a lot of thought about what it might, it's really best understood as a sort of a successor to the mobile internet. This is because the metaverse will not fundamentally replace the internet, but instead build upon it and iteratively transform it. The best analogy here is really the mobile internet if you look at it, how it was established on top of the internet itself, which was established in 1960s all the way through the 1990s, right? So even though the mobile internet did not change the underlying architecture of the internet, in fact, we still use TCP/IP, we still use HTTP, and all the data that is being sent to mobile devices or to the browser is still fundamentally very similar to the 90s. But the vast majority of the internet traffic today, including data sent to the mobile devices, is still transmitted through managed fixed infrastructure. But we recognize it differently. This is because the mobile internet has led to changes on how we access internet, when we access internet, why we access the internet, as well as on the devices that we access this internet on, the companies that we like Facebook or Apple or Epic Games, the products or the services that we buy, and all of these changes. And the metaverse will be similarly transformative, as it too advances and alters the role of how computers and internet play in our lives. And if you metaverse iterates further on top of the internet by really placing someone in, I would say, a virtual or a 3D or even an embodied version of the internet on a nearly unending basis. So in other words, we will constantly be within the internet rather than having to access it, and within the billions of internet or rather interconnected computers around us, which we today occasionally reach for, we will be immersed in them all the time. Now, just because we are talking about video games and real-time 3D engine, metaverse doesn't really mean it's just video games, right? Because video games have a very specific purpose, which is you have a lot of fun with it. And it's also unintegrated. That means there is really no interoperability between, say, a game like Overwatch and Roblox. They cannot talk to each other. And it's also temporary, right? Because every game just resets after a match. And there's also a problem about having capped participants. So today, Fortnite, which is one of the largest games in the world, you still have to, if you have like 1 million concurrent users, for example, you still have to have about 100,000 separate simulations that would take place rather than having everyone in the same place or the same simulation or the same world. Of course, we will play games in the metaverse, and those games may have user caps and resets, but those games are in the metaverse and not the metaverse itself. So persistence, interoperability, scaling, concurrency, these are all challenges that are being solved for the metaverse. And video games such as Fortnite or Roblox are really a window into these experiences that show in what direction the metaverse could potentially head to. And that's kind of what we'll be talking about in terms of what are the layers of the metaverse. And Samir, if you can go to the next slide, Samir can talk about a few of them before I can also jump in later.
Thanks for that. So really, this is the sort of slicing of the various stacks that go into the metaverse. So, and within each one of these, obviously, there's a lot of texture. But let's start with infrastructure. This is the core underpinning, the hardware, the metal that runs, and the compute power gets generated for every pixel and voxel that you see on screens or you will see in your smart glasses. Innovators in this category tend to be the picks and shovels of large companies, which they have already built these picks and shovels of for the existing sort of, like Google Cloud, which is uses a lot of the same underpinnings which are used right for media CDN. That YouTube is built on media CDN, but now it's offered to everybody. Similarly, what AWS does to what Amazon.com had built in many ways, building the infrastructure out. But while the three main components of this are obviously network, storage, and compute. But beyond this, it also goes into telephony, and with the impending sort of 5G auctions, that whole tower hardware infrastructure also, you could think of that as being a part of it. And obviously, you can't ignore some of the elephants in the room, such as NVIDIA, Intel, Qualcomm, and others. Human interface is the way that we all end up experiencing it, and the most popular example of this is both devices, but in this case, the mobile phone being the killer one, but Oculus with its recent sort of spurge in sales, but also what was hopefully going to be coming in the form of glasses from rumored companies like Apple. And many other cases of sort of these human interfaces also are broadly being looked at about various components like what Alexa does with voice, as well as what Google does with Assistant. Right now, you're seeing them in sort of the physical world, but very soon you'll begin to see how they can interact with whether it's your avatar in a virtual world, or with whether it is how it can kind of interact with these in sort of gamified environments. So individually, currently, these are devices that are standalone, but somehow they will all, the idea that with IoT and they will all interact, but they'll interact in a 3D realm as opposed to sort of in the world we live in currently, it's a physical 3D realm. But when you end up interacting with it digitally, it's still in a 2D environment, and that maybe will change over a period of time. And lastly, it's decentralization before I hand it over to Arvind. And the idea of decentralization is, from computing at the edge, which is again something which you're going to be seeing more and more of in 5G, but also the decentralization of finance, decentralization and fractionalization of ownership. And this is where obviously Web3 and blockchain comes in. Typically, this whole idea of the metaverse tends to be combined a couple of nefarious concepts which are sometimes all boiled together. But really, there's two distinct streams that we look at it from. One is the world of crypto and the world of 3D. So today, a lot of the conversation, while you'll find for us, especially when it comes to case studies talking about both crypto and 3D mixing together in some form, really, between Arvind and me, we spend a lot more time looking at what makes great virtual experiences as opposed to what's making the underpinning economy work very well, whether it's built on Polygon or Solana, etc. So that's where decentralization and newer technologies end up being bundled into a cocktail with a wider view of metaverse. Next comes spatial, and that's where Arvind, maybe you should take over.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from Epic Games, so I'm going to maybe use Epic Games as one of the analogies, one of the examples that I'll be talking about when talking about spatial computing, right? Actually, if you can just still be on the previous slide, thank you. So Epic Games is, of course, one of the most influential tech companies in the world. And this potential really stems from the strength of Epic's core business, which is Unreal Engine, which is already used to produce many of the world's leading games, movies, and virtual experiences. And this, of course, includes Epic's Fortnite, which is one of the most played and profitable online worlds globally. Now, around Unreal Engine, there are also a host of tools such as the MetaHuman Creator, which lets you create realistic human beings quite easily, or capturing reality that lets you scan the real world and add it to your own experiences. And these kinds of accessible tools allows for a creator economy to grow, because anyone is now able to bring in digitally accurate or digitally interesting assets into their own world. Within Fortnite, of course, there is Fortnite Creative that allows for UGC or user-generated content to grow the creator economy. Now, the popularity of Fortnite here is really hard to miss. But what's less apparent, though, is how this success has enabled us at Epic to rapidly transform and expand our business by enabling discoverability of content. This includes the 2018 launch of Epic Games Store and the 2020 unveiling of the Epic Games Publishing, with 350 million users and 2.3 billion social connections. Epic is, I would say, operates one of internet's largest and fastest growing social networks. So you have user generated content, but how do you then have consumption of these experiences, or how do you have users experience these user generated content? Now, Epic's Unreal Engine allows game developers to pretty much release their games across all devices and platforms through Epic Online Services, which allows developers to operate multiplayer online services for their games across multiple devices or platforms or engines. So it could be on Xbox or a Switch or a PS5. And in addition, these developers would get access to Epic's enormous player network and social graph. So really, Epic Online Services, in other words, is really Fortnite services in a box. So by using it, a developer can instantly make their games available anywhere where Fortnite is available, operate within the comparable multiplayer functionality and at a comparable scale, and use the entire friend and team list too, and they get to do all of that for free.
So the first company is actually a really interesting one. What we have been looking at is firms which have the capability to build high quality 3D experiences, ideally which are interactive and playable, which basically means that it's a long way of saying that they are good quality games to start with, made by good quality teams. And this is one of an interesting one in which this company has been really making this. It's a verticalized blockchain fighter game. So think of it like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but done using cultural nuances from the crypto world. From last count, I believe there's about 25 million sort of millennials in India which actually have crypto wallets, and they tend to be on Discord servers and sort of within Reddit communities and have their own sort of cultural understanding of that world. So think of each one of these coins having their own champion. So what if Solana had a champion? What if Polygon had a champion? And imagine if each one of these champions was made to fight with each other, but they were almost like a typical RPG game, had the ability for you to develop these characters, and these characters would then mutate so that there would be a whole ecosystem of these NFTs that you could buy. But these NFTs have deep utility because you are really playing them. And when you're playing them, you're not playing a boring game. You're playing a high quality AAA game with incredibly great graphics and one which has excellent gameplay. And if you go on to the next slide, the reason we feel somebody like this would work well is because India and especially developing markets, if you look at the first taste of a wide acceptance in gaming, it's been real money gaming. And the reason being that, for the first time, a whole bunch of people could get into playing interactive content, but on the back of skills, find a way to make money because of all the cultural nuances that come with playing games is a waste of time. But if you make money out of it, then it's perfectly fine, and your mom won't yell at you. So we do believe that sort of the ability to go from real money gaming to play to earn based on blockchain comes naturally in this culture. And games which are not only being able to tap into that cultural habit, but being also able to be something that's great fun to play, and also hit on this sort of newer edge culture, such as what's happening in the world of crypto, combined with, if you go to the next slide, a high quality team which has been able to ship multiple AAA games. In India, if you look at it, a lot of the original sort of studios got spun out of companies like Zynga, because these were people who were trained inside of Zynga. You look at Psy at MPL, you look at a lot of the firms, whether it's Moonfrog, a lot of them which got acquired, they came out of the training and the boot camps that the likes of Zynga had put them to. They also built a good professional bench of people who were employed there and then went on to be ambitious and very capable founders. But then there is a second layer of a lot of these outsourced firms, whether it's the studios which have been run here by the likes of Ubisoft, Rockstar, and we are seeing a lot of people coming out from there who are capable of doing high quality games, have worked in high quality global teams, and have shipped products. And this is one of those teams we believe is an excellent one, because they actually know what it means to deliver a high quality AAA title, because they have delivered it in a variety of roles and contributions. Yeah, and the good part is that these guys are already back, so we are quite happy to kind of come in with a whole bunch of high quality investors in a pre-seed round. The second one is really interesting, and this is actually takes a broader view of what it means to be a game. And the reason I like this is because it obviously hits on passion areas, but again, excellent founders. These guys have basically become the monopoly in cricket broadcast in many ways, and they have used this sort of whole drone stack that they have to now be able to create a digital twin of the game. So imagine the ability for you to play the last ball you just saw in the IPL, or to play the last ball you saw in a current live cricket match, but you're playing it in an incredibly deep, visceral experience. So you're actually playing it in a place where you can actually get literally down to the devil details, like what is the speed of running between the wickets. But you're actually not just seeing that as data, you're feeling it because you are there on the pitch in the next ball. And the reason you are there is because they have already got the ability to track every part of that ecosystem, since they already broadcast partners with some of the biggest cricket broadcasters, and probably about 80% of all matches they are a partner in terms of using drone technology to broadcast it. Now they're using that same drone infrastructure to be able to capture a whole variety of data points. Think of it like a volumetric capture. And because they're able to capture all these data points, they can recreate those to make you feel like you're playing the game, because now the technology, especially with Unreal, has the ability for you to do that. So this is another excellent company that we have got, the ability to put capital into, and we are. And the idea really is that your experience of sports is going to change. There is nothing which will, I think, one step away, besides obviously the cool confines of sitting in an air conditioned room and watching a cricket match on television. The next best experience is to sit in the stadium, and the best experience after that is to probably be to be a player on the field, and the best experience after that is to actually be the player who's either bowling or batting. And this jumps and leapfrogs your ability to go from being in your living room to actually feeling like you're playing that ball. So that's really the gradient when you move from left to right. That's the gradient where we believe that technology like this, and especially with this kind of team on the ground, who have had a proven experience, built a multi-million-dollar business, and are profitable, and are now moving to the next phase of being able to build these deep experiences. This is another company which we would be really happy to partner with. So yeah, these are some of the case studies which I think which we had picked up, and hopefully this will be a good thought starter on how we are looking at the industry and the kind of companies and the kind of founders and entrepreneurs we want to